Well, hello, my Booktube friends. Welcome back to Read Becca. We're going to talk today about another Booktube prize book that I read for the semifinals round in July, and that was More Than I Love My Life by David Grossman and translated by Jessica Cohen. So, as I said, I read this for Booktube prize for the translated fiction category, semifinals round, and I really love this book. So I had a very hard time not continuously comparing it to elements that I liked in previous books and feeling like this did all of those elements better. So this kind of starts in the middle with the second generation of a 3-generation saga as they're teenagers. So to make this make sense though, in order to explain the kind of complicated family tree, I think I'm gonna have to go a little more linear. So our first generation is focused on Vera, and Vera is married to Milos, where we see her fall in love and we go through their initial love story in Serbia, and they kind of travel and wind up in Croatia over the course of the story. And I don't totally feel like I understood all of the locations they were in during their travel, but regardless, they wind up there. So this is very Balkan-centered. So in the second generation, there's kind of this time gap where Milos is now out of the picture. We're mainly focused from Rafi's perspective, who is a teenager and very hormonally crushing on Nina, who is Vera's teenage daughter. And Nina is this very alluring and mysterious girl. There's lots of rumors about her in their community in Israel. So obviously something has happened to where Vera has ended up in Israel, and those rumors surrounding Nina are all about the fact that Vera ended up in this prison camp, Goli Otok, off the coast of Croatia, and that Nina was kind of left behind and what she may have done to live on the streets. And she's just this kind of dangerous, unusual, and a little bit unhinged young woman. So Rafi is immediately drawn to her. And so we follow their love story, but at the same time, we have Vera, who falls in love with Rafi's father, Tuvia, and they do end up together. So we have kind of a generational coupling there. It seems kind of like Rafi and Nina are going to get over their extremely charged and contentious relationship, but then along comes Gilly, their daughter. And so the third generation is Gilly, and we're seeing her grow up. She's left by this mother who I would say that Nina is kind of coded as bipolar or manic. I obviously don't want to diagnose based off of anything in the book, but to get an idea of her behavior, that's very much what it seems like. She just up and leaves very often. She is extremely impulsive about things. She jumps into risky situations or has extremely risky sex a lot of the time, and there's nothing graphic on the page, but we hear about these behaviors that she's kind of gone off and lived on her own, and Rafi is left pining, Gilly is left behind. And so the way that this comes back together is all three of these generations. All of those primary characters, Vera, Rafi, Nina, and Gilly, and now Gilly is an adult, and they're going to Goli Otok, this prison camp, to understand Vera's story and what her experience was there. And that's what filled that gap of time between her being in Croatia and her winding up in Israel. And they're going to film a documentary. And so they all decide that Gilly should be in charge, and she should be the lens that this documentary is filmed through. So I felt like all of the elements here were just done so well. So comparing to previous books that I read for the prize, both in octafinals round and earlier in the semifinals round, I had other books that had great familial relationships, that were complicated, great characterization, but it was just done better here. I had, in this book, this total sense of distinct character voice for each character. I had a unique sense of every pair of relationships. So every single one was delivered so well and just properly executed that you had a real sense of who these people were and the strained relationships between these family members. the difficulties between them, and the power of the situation that they were in, the ways that they underestimated each other. It was just great. So then the setting, I think I didn't get as much of a sense of setting as I would have liked, or as much historical background as I would have liked. But overall, I did get a feeling of being in a distinct place. I didn't always understand where that place was in terms of actual geographical location, but you could tell which home we were talking about through time, or the sense of this actual prison location. So we're in the prison both in whatever the current time is with the third generation, and looking back at Vera's time there as a prisoner, and those are very distinct and overtly different descriptions of place. So I thought that was amazing. The description of this documentary being set up, and the decisions they're making about how to lay it out, about what to talk about, were just a smart framing, I think, for this book. It made it extremely compulsively readable, extremely powerful to keep going and understanding the delivery of this story, the things they choose to want to put in and not have in. So I think one of the most important things about this documentary is the spoiler for the title, and it is the hinge for all of this complexity of relationship. It is the discussion that Rafi and Gilly have with Vera privately without Nina, that in fact what had happened in this story was that she chose her husband. She chose to go to prison in order to prevent denying her husband and saying that he was, or lying to say that he was a Stalinist, even though he was already dead. So she chose to love her husband more than she loved her life, more than she loved her daughter, and left her daughter alone while she went to prison and went through horrible, horrible acts. I think that was a powerful and complex situation to process, and I think it was really deftly delivered to the reader. I think it made so much sense about why Nina is so damaged and is going through these mental difficulties, and feels such a sense of rejection over what she's been through, even though to Vera, Nina doesn't know. But even if Nina doesn't know exactly what the choice was, she still knows she was left behind. She knows her mother left her and went to this prison, and that she was alone for all this time. And so she still feels that distance and abandonment. So there was a lot of complexity in the emotions, and I think this is a very character-driven and emotion-driven novel, but in a mellow way, not in a way that is packing any huge drama, or it's not dropping bombshells of big action between these people. They're very low-key and kind of accepting of the strained relationships that they're having and living with. I do think that kind of hits on one of the things that I didn't like, is that because it was so character and emotion focused, it's not as much focused on the history. So I think the main criticism that I would have for this is that, unfortunately, in the US, I know that there is not the greatest world history education, and for myself, I got an even worse world history education than most. So that's just kind of a known thing. So I didn't know anything about the Balkans. I didn't know anything about the politics there, the leaders there, and this doesn't dig into delivering you a big explanation of what was happening or why. And I do kind of wish we had more of that, at least. So when she's in prison, they keep referencing a world leader. You can assume it's not clearly given. They assume you know who it is by name, probably, but I didn't. I had no concept for, who was in leadership at that time. I had no concept for who it was that was actually imprisoning Vera, and that's not explained on the page. I had no concept of why they would be upset with her for potentially even being a Stalinist, which, she was adamant that she wasn't. So I had a lack of all those facts, and it's not laid out in the book. Now, obviously, I can go look that up. If you want to, go look up the Tito-Stalin split. I have since done that. So I'm fine with informing myself, but I do feel like the book could have been enhanced by delivering that level of information about the political context for this book. So I also didn't know a lot. As I said, the setting is laid out where you can understand unique settings, but I really don't know anything about the layout of the Balkans and the relationship between those, I guess, states. Again, I don't know a lot about this. So I'm not the most informed reader, and the fact that there was clearly a conflict happening there, there's not really any explanation of why that was happening or which states they were traveling through were at conflict. So we know that Milos, Vera's original husband at the start, was a Serbian soldier. So I don't know when they traveled through if they were enemies or if they were friends to the certain places that they were located at. So I think things could have been enhanced by having more information there. But I also did appreciate that it didn't info dump on us. So it had a focus of emotion and character, and I think it gave up a little bit on the historical side. So overall, I thought that was very powerful. One of the most powerful moments emotionally was when Vera is talking about her experiences of going through this prisoner situation and having gone through war, and she's explaining to her daughter and granddaughter that they can't understand what it was like to be a woman during war, that they just don't have the context for that. And I think that was the heart of this powerful novel, that it really got across, having those quiet conversations of experience, of having a trauma in your life that no one else can understand, and that having rippled to forward generations without them having directly been involved. So yeah, I thought that was very powerful in the way that it was done, and the ways that specifically the women, these 3 generations of women, were all impacted by this one traumatic event and this life choice that Vera made. So I think that's what I have for More Than I Love My Life. It was a really powerful, rich, layered read, and I think this is the most recommendable of my reads. I think this has the most broad appeal. It's very serious, it's very well written, and it really pulls you in with both the framing and the characters. They're extremely believable, and I feel like I got something out of the entirety of this novel. So I really highly recommend this one, and we will see how it does in the Booktube prize going forward. Thanks so much for watching.